Hey guys, this is Leeza, and today I want to talk about birth control and contraception. Now this is an important topic, but it's also a complicated topic, so this is going to be a long video and I'd request that you watch it till the end. Our society can make it seem like women, and particularly unmarried women, should be made to feel ashamed or uncomfortable seeking out contraception or birth control, because women shouldn't even be having sex in the first place. So the unsaid rule as far as contraception goes, particularly among urban youth in India, is that the guy should show up with condoms if they're using contraception at all, because men will even have us believe that their self-control is so incredible that the withdrawal method is a legitimate method. It is not. I just think it's so important that we make it a priority to learn about the safest and most effective options available as far as our reproductive and sexual health go. And so today I wanted to talk about my experiences with different forms of birth control and contraception. I am obviously not a gynecologist, and different people have different requirements with regard to birth control based on their medical history, their lifestyle, their age, and all sorts of other factors. So this is absolutely not medical advice. This is just my experience, and the reason I think it's important to put it out there is because I just want to start a conversation. I think we're not encouraged to talk about this at all, so many people don't even know what their options are or don't even bother considering birth control or contraception as an option because there's so much stigma around accessing it. So I am purely talking about this to start a conversation. If one is in a long-term monogamous relationship, it's likely that one has considered switching from condoms to a more effective method, because condoms aren't 100% effective against pregnancy. In fact, even if people are using condoms, they might consider an additional form of birth control simply for the same reason, as an additional precaution. In either case, the first step is for both partners to get tested. And this is important because unlike condoms, all other forms of birth control and contraception don't protect against STDs. So if STDs are a concern, condoms are non-negotiable. Once both partners are tested and all is clear, your gynac will explain to you all the options there are. And I'm going to just share a chart with you that shows the various options available, separated into 3 categories based on how effective they are statistically. The options in the first row are known to be 99% effective when used correctly. The options in the second row are known to be between 94 and 91% effective. And the options in the third row are known to be less than 88% effective. I personally have used the copper IUD, the progestin-only pill, and the hormonal IUD, and so those are the methods I'll be talking about in most detail today, since I have personal experience with those methods. So when I set out to figure out birth control for myself about 6 or 7 years ago, the choices seemed pretty overwhelming because they all come with side effects. There is no perfect choice. Initially, I didn't want to go for a hormonal method because somehow the idea of putting synthetic hormones into my body just seemed scary to me. I was new to it all, and so I was just keen to start out with a non-hormonal method, and that's when my gynecologist told me about the copper T, or the copper IUD. IUD stands for intrauterine device, and the copper IUD, once inserted, can last for up to 10 or more years. So this T-shaped piece of plastic has copper coil around it, and it's manually inserted into your uterus, and how it works is that copper deactivates sperm, making it unable to fertilize an egg. At the time, it appealed to me because it was non-hormonal, it was statistically highly effective, it was low cost, it was also very long-lasting. However, the insertion process can be painful, and the copper IUD tends to increase menstrual bleeding and menstrual cramps. While I had a relatively hassle-free insertion process, the heavier periods and the painful cramps really started to get to me, and so I got my copper IUD removed within less than 2 years of having it inserted, even though, as I said, it can be used for up to 10 years. I was just left feeling exhausted and fatigued all the time because of that excess bleeding, and so I decided it wasn't for me. So after I got the copper T removed, I decided to try a hormonal method because I really didn't have much of a choice. As far as long-acting reversible contraceptives go, pretty much the only non-hormonal method on offer is the copper T. My gynac told me about the various birth control pills available, as well as about the hormonal IUD, but since I had just had my copper IUD removed, I thought I'd first try the pill just to see how my body reacts to the hormones before committing to the hormonal IUD. Birth control pills are typically formulated either with a combination of estrogen and progestin or with called progestin-only. The combination pill works primarily by preventing ovulation, which is the release of the egg in the monthly cycle. And of course, if the egg isn't released, there's no egg to be fertilized, so you can't get pregnant. Birth control pills can also work by thickening the mucus in the cervix, preventing sperm from being able to enter the uterus. And it can sometimes also thin the lining of the uterus, making it difficult for an egg to attach to the wall of the uterus. All of this helps prevent pregnancy. Factors like how old you are, whether you smoke or not, your medical history, any medication you're taking, your lifestyle, all of this stuff is extremely important in determining whether or not birth control pills are a viable option for you, because there's a pretty long list of potential side effects ranging from mild to severe. Since I was a smoker, the combination pill was not an option for me, and I was prescribed the progestin-only pill, which I took for over a year. An obvious pro of the pill is that it is taken orally, so there's no painful insertion process, and some pills can even help with acne and PCOS. Before I even get to the side effects, for me the basic premise of having to take a pill every single day at the same time was hugely inconvenient. I travel a ton for work, and I'm also pretty forgetful, and so setting an alarm and remembering every single day that I have to do this thing, having to also access it in different places, and just thinking about birth control on a daily basis, I found it stressful and annoying. It also definitely increased my mood swings, and I used to get headaches, feel bloated. It actually aggravated my acne. I was on the progestin-only pill though, and so all in all, again, it just wasn't working for me. So around the same time that I decided I wanted to switch from the pill to something else, I had spoken with a friend who had had the hormonal IUD for several years, and she said she'd had a really hassle-free and relatively pleasant experience with it. And I also spoke to my gynac, who had recommended it even earlier. She said that it's pretty much the most effective hormonal method of birth control out there, and that I was a good candidate for it. So I decided I'd try the hormonal IUD. Hormonal IUDs look pretty similar to copper IUDs, but instead of copper, they use a hormone called levonorgestrel, which is a type of progestin to prevent pregnancy. Unlike the copper IUD, the hormonal IUD actually decreases the severity of periods, and some women even stop getting their period altogether. Now, this might sound like a disadvantage to some people, but to me it sounded like a pretty big advantage. They work by thickening the mucus in the cervix to prevent sperm from entering, or by thinning the lining of the uterus to suppress ovulation. Hormonal IUDs can last for 3 to 5 years, and they work by releasing a small amount of hormone into the uterus directly. I've been using a hormonal IUD for close to 3 years now, and compared with my experiences with the other options, it is the method that I am relatively the happiest with. Unfortunately, it is on the expensive side, but to me it seems like a worthwhile investment because it lasts for a very long time, and it is certainly cheaper than having a kid. For me, the insertion process was a little bit painful, but not unbearable. It was very quick, and I was able to return to work immediately after my appointment, but that can be different for different women. Over the first couple of months after getting the hormonal IUD inserted, I did experience some irregular bleeding, which my gynac had prepared me for, but then after those first few months of adjustment, I pretty much haven't had to think about it at all. It's just doing its thing, and my periods have become so light that I don't even have to use pads or tampons or anything. I can just use a liner or tissue, if at all. And while that might be seen as a disadvantage to some women who like getting their period for whatever reason, for me it's been a huge advantage because I travel a lot, I work out a lot. It's just very convenient to not really have to deal with my period anymore. I do, however, occasionally experience mood swings, headaches, bloating, nausea, all that sort of stuff. But I used to experience some amount of it also just during my period in general. So I'm not sure how much of it is due to the IUD and how much of it is just my body being my body. But I would imagine that any amount of hormone, even the small amount that's released by an IUD, is going to have some impact on things like your mood, your skin, your hair, all the regular things that the hormonal methods tend to impact. So it's definitely worth looking into those side effects before you consider any hormonal method, especially vis-a-vis how your own body works, because it can be so different for different people. Oh, also, in case I forgot to mention earlier, both the copper IUD and the hormonal IUD are reversible. You can get your gynac to just remove them at any point and your fertility returns to normal. Given my personal experience, it does surprise me that IUDs, and particularly hormonal IUDs, aren't more popular. In fact, many people don't even know about them. And I myself also shared this sort of exaggerated fear around the fact that they could be dangerous or that they're scary somehow. I think that IUDs have suffered a lot of bad PR, partly because in the 70s there was this faulty American model called the Dalcon Shield that was mired in controversy. But in fact, the newer IUDs, particularly the new hormonal IUDs, are incredibly effective and among the safest and most effective forms of birth control out there. So if you are considering birth control, it's worth researching the hormonal IUD as an option. There are additional contraceptive options out there, such as patches, injections, implants, vaginal rings, cervical caps, female condoms. There's a whole bunch of other stuff as well. I haven't tried these, so I don't have first-hand experience with them, which is why I didn't talk about them today. But if you are considering your birth control options, please do your research with your gynac. Look at all the options available to you, assess the pros and cons, understand how each of the methods work, what they mean for your body, what the side effects are. Every woman's body is different. There really is no one-stop solution. So this is really something that you've got to figure out for yourself. But I think it's important that we know our options and that we also don't feel ashamed for seeking them out. All of that said, I do think it is terribly unfair that the costs and the consequences of birth control, as also of an unwanted pregnancy, disproportionately impact women's lives and women's body and women. For an activity that men participate equally in, it really is a shame that we're stuck with all the issues surrounding it, right? And so while I do think it's important to know the options available to us, I also think it's important that we advocate for better and safer methods as well as a reliable male alternative. Men and women should both be advocating for better forms of birth control for future generations. And I think it's really, really important that we have this conversation, which is why I made this video. So hopefully it'll be helpful to you whether you're considering contraception for yourself or just keen to know something about it. And hopefully you'll also be inspired to come together to advocate for better methods, because we don't yet have a perfect method. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a big thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please remember, I am not a gynecologist and this isn't medical advice. I just want to start a conversation. See you next time.